Democrats are already threatening to squash the bill without a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill getting passed first. Joining me now, Kentucky Congressman, House Oversight and Reform Committee Ranking Member James Comer. Congressman Comer, I don't want to get into the theoretical weeds here, but the only reason I can think that some of these Republican senators would have signed on to this is knowing that Nancy Pelosi is going to hold it up unless she gets her way with this $3.5 trillion reconciliation. So it's a vote, a yay vote to go nowhere. That's my theory.
I think your theory is correct. I think a lot of Republicans still have a lot of questions. How to pay for it is a big question. When you mention $110 billion for roads and bridges, exactly which roads and bridges does that include? But when you look at what's going on here in the House right now, Nancy Pelosi's conference is in chaos. You have the squad and the more progressive wing of her party. They want to spend trillions of dollars in new social programs, and the Senate's not going to go along with that. So I don't think we're anywhere near passing an infrastructure bill, and I think that a lot of Republicans in the Senate realized that last night.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now requiring all of her members in Congress to once again wear masks inside the chamber. The move comes amid a surge in new Delta variant cases. Meanwhile, senators are not required to wear masks but are encouraged to do so. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's no science to back up Pelosi's newest stunt with respect to COVID. If the Democrats were serious about trying to prevent the spread of this new variant of COVID that's coming up from South America, then they would secure the border. I think that Pelosi did this yesterday, knowing that Republicans were going to fight back because we're trying to lead by example. We don't want to see the economy shut down again. We want to see people enjoy their freedom and be able to live their lives and get back to normal. And I think Pelosi realizes that nothing's going her way. She's not going to be able to please both the moderates and the progressives in her conference. So she did this mask mandate yesterday to deflect. And now the story's about the mask mandate instead of the fact that Pelosi doesn't have the votes to pass an infrastructure bill.
Joseph, jump in.
Yeah, Congressman, obviously, I'm old enough to remember during the height of the Tea Party movement when there was a movement to have a vote to ensure people actually read the bills they voted for. We've seemed to have graduated now to having to vote for bills that have not even been written. How do we get people to understand that when you're talking about $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there, $3.5 trillion is enough money adjusted for inflation to pay for FDR's New Deal 3 times over with change left over? This is going to have a disastrous impact, particularly on those seniors who live on a fixed income already getting ravaged by inflation. How do we get a Republican caucus to get that message to the people that these fanciful spending ideas have real consequences for the people living on Main Street?
Well, that's a great point. I think the Republicans in the House are going to be trying to deliver that message. This is going to create more inflation. It's a terrible time to try to do a major infrastructure bill because of the Democrat policies thus far in the Biden administration have created massive inflation. So it's going to cost a lot more to build that road and that bridge. It's going to cost a lot more to run that rural broadband today than it would have during the Trump administration. And the American consumers can't afford that, especially those on fixed income. So nothing good's coming out of the Biden administration right now. There's no long-term plans. And when you look at the mentality of the Democrats in Congress right now, I don't think a lot of these Democrat members can comprehend the difference between $1 billion and $1 trillion. So that's the message that the Republicans are going to have to deliver. And I was disappointed to see the Republicans move the bill along because they don't know what's in the bill last night. That's what happened in the Senate. That won't happen in the House. The Republicans in the House are a solid no on this until we know how they're going to pay for it and what exactly is in the bill.
You've been very vocal, Congressman, about getting to the bottom of the pandemic's origins. What are your thoughts on the current state of that investigation?
Well, we're making progress. Obviously, we identified the $600,000 that Dr. Fauci approved to EcoHealth Alliance of American tax dollars that ended up at the Wuhan lab. We're trying to determine if there are more tax dollars that ended up in the Wuhan lab. It's very disappointing that the Biden administration will not cooperate with House Republican investigation efforts. It's very disappointing that Dr. Fauci won't come testify before the House of Representatives, but we're going to keep the effort up. I think most Americans now realize that the odds of COVID-19 starting in that lab in Wuhan are very high, and they want to hold China accountable.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Speaker Nancy Pelosi will not allow a full hearings on the origins of COVID. Is that correct, Congressman?
That is 100% correct.
So that has killed 611,000 Americans at this point. The virus has more than that. The January 6th riots were horrific. And there was a hearing earlier this week. Important to hear that potentially, but what about getting to the bottom of a virus that came from China and killed hundreds of thousands of Americans? She doesn't see that as important.
She does not, and it's shocking to me. I can assure you, in Kentucky, the overwhelming majority of people are more concerned about the origins of COVID-19 than they are who was responsible for January 6th. You're right, January 6th was a terrible day. It should have never happened. I hope it never happens again. But there are so many other issues that the American people are more concerned about: securing the border, reducing crime, stopping inflation, and getting to the bottom of the origination of COVID-19.
Congressman, thank you so much for being here. James Comer, Congressman.
Thanks for having me on.